Hi everyone. So today evening we are continuing on our Ink Her series. This is a collaboration between Jobs for Her and Ink Women. And as part of this, we are interviewing 49 women. Why 49? Because 49.6% of the world is women. So we thought we should interview 49 women. And the idea is to explore amazing women's journeys across disciplines and to talk about the ups and downs of their lives so we learn something from it. And today we have with us Dr. Sunita Krishnan, who's heads Prajwala Foundation, which is one of the largest organizations working in anti-trafficking. And Sunita is a Padma Shri and has got many international awards. And you'll find more about her as we have a conversation instead of me giving a long bio to you. Needless to say, she's someone who's been a personal hero to me and to a lot of friends of mine for close to a couple of decades since I've met her and watched her progress, about a decade and a half, I would say, and watched her progress. So, Sunita, it's wonderful to have you as part of this conversation. And who better than you to talk about what it takes to build an organization and the gotchas? So, as you can imagine, it's not just about all hunky dory, but all the things that we go through to make things happen. So welcome, Sunita.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Always a pleasure talking to you. And I think I keep saying this to you, but I want to again reiterate it. You kind of bring out the best in me. So it's such a pleasure to be in your company.
Yeah. So, Sunita, a lot of people know about your past. So I want to go through that quickly in terms of one of the things that stands out for me is that somehow you had this penchant for working with others since the time you were a kid. You know, when you're 8, you taught dance to, children with intellectual disabilities. At 12, you started literary classes in the slums, and at 15, while you were actually doing a lot of work with the Dalits, you went through a horrific experience of a gang rape, and you didn't let that keep you down and you kept working at it. You saved over 25,000 women in Prajwala, and it's not an easy task. So I want to start right off by saying, how do you get over so many negatives to keep moving forward? What is it that gives you that strength all the way from a 15-year-old to over 50 that you are now? So, what is it? Because I really feel that if I saw on a daily basis a fraction of what you see, I may lose all, hopes of humanity and may want to run away from people. And you keep at it and you never lose faith. So, where does all that come from?
I think, Lakshmi, for me at the age of 15 to be gang raped, I was consumed with anger.
Yeah.
And I would say that anger was my driving force because I think my personal quality is how I'm able to harness anger into a positive energy of change. I think it is anger that has kept me going and it's my driving force from the age of 15 to now 53. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not 20,000 Lakshmi, 32,000 women and girls out of
Because
sex
every time I
slavery.
talk to you, a few thousands have added, so I can never be current with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I think, the innate quality that I am endowed with, and I am endowed with that perhaps in my own DNA, is that I'm able to kind of harness something very, what might look for the world as a very negative and emotion to be a very positive channelizing and harnessing drive. So I was angry 36 years back. I'm angry even today. And that
Mhm.
keeps me going because every night I am reminded of the faces that I have not yet served. And every
Mm-hmm.
morning I get up, okay, now this many more I need to, you know, work with. So there is a reason why I sleep, and there's a reason why I get up in the morning. And it is that anger that, which I've harnessed as something very proactive and positive force that directs me, that makes me remind every day that you can't, take rest, you know, and everything that happens with it,
Mm-hmm.
the exploitation, the injustice, the unfairness, both by the society and the criminal elements, really rages me inside, and
Mm-hmm.
while the anger doesn't consume me, the anger is, it comes out as a strategic force. Now, what am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to change this? How can I change this injustice? And I somewhere feel, how can I cut the wings of this unfair system?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel, it's 36 years since I've been gang raped. Nothing
Yeah.
has changed. Nothing
Yeah.
has changed in the world. Even today, if a chief minister asks some weird question like, why did she go at 12:30 in the night? And, she should, be more cognizant of the fact that she should protect herself. Girls are not supposed to go out in the night. Even today, I'm
Yeah.
referring to the Durgapur gang rape case that happened just last week. And the
Yeah.
Honorable Chief Minister's first comment was, why did she go at 12:30 in the night? So that attitude of the society to victimize a victim, you know,
Mm-hmm.
has not
Mm-hmm.
changed. And
Right.
so what I went through, see, the rapers say what I went through was not as traumatic as what the world did to me,
Mm-hmm.
the way
Mm-hmm.
the world questioned my motive, you know, squarely placing all the blame of everything that happened on me. Now, why did she
Mm-hmm.
go in the night? Why was she, what was she doing there? And finally the conclusion being that you got what you deserved. You know, if
Right.
you
Yeah.
behave like this is what you're going to get. So I think that unfairness has not changed. And the anger related to that unfairness is what keeps me going.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing I've not talked to you much, Sunita, is that when it actually happened, when you were 15, I mean, at 15, we are all full of idealism and nothing feels like it's impossible. And when it happened, I mean, when someone attacked you, when you were walking through the fields to get back to where you wanted, first it's a shock, right? And then there is a physical uh, discomfort, physical pain. Now, when you were going through it, did you know you were going to get through it? Or did you feel this might be the last time? I mean, what was going through your head? Were you thinking of, I'm going to get out of this and do something about it, or you're blank, or like, what was going through your head?
I don't think anything went through my head. I was blank. And I think I was zoned out completely when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever became my response is an organic evolution. It was not something like, oh, I'm going to get out of this. So there was this, the night of complete zone out. And then
Mm-hmm.
as the day panned out, when I was found, and then people started reacting, with that organically, I also started, responding both outside and inside. But I think there
Right.
was a point, Lakshmi, when I s- I became two persons, you know,
Mm-hmm.
a person inside me, which was going several things, and a person outside me, which was giving a public face.
Mm-hmm.
So the person outside me, after a point, decided I'm not going to show what I'm going through inside, which
Mm-hmm.
is my shame, my guilt, my trauma, and my sense of, absolute being defiled, in terms like I don't want even to touch my body. There's something very, very wrong with me. This is something that I didn't want the outside world to know. But it
Mm-hmm.
was not something that was not there in me. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, Lakshmi, I can't say even after 36 years it's gone. That
That's what I wonder. Yeah, yeah.
it
That
is there, you know. So
difference between inside and outside.
yeah, and this inside part at that time manifested as panic attacks, at that time manifested as nightmares in the night. I would, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would be running in my sleep and, going and banging my head on the door, opening it. And, it was a strange situation my family had to go through, not knowing what to tell this person, what is the way to console a person. And what can I say, Lakshmi? I have my nightmares even today. I
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
have my post-traumatic stress manifestations even today. Even today, I'm not able to say, walk into a crowd and, kind of, I don't know what body odor puts me off. I'm not able to make out. But there are certain body odors I just move out and I start puking, you know.
mm-hmm.
I'm not able to explain this to people, but I don't go to crowded temples. I don't go to crowded festivals or marriages. I don't go to any places crowded. I've
Mm-hmm,
made that.
mm-hmm.
Now, over the years, I have made my excuses for that. I'm too
Right,
busy. I will
right,
not come, but then I can't face a crowd. You know,
right. Yeah.
even today when I walk maybe on the street and there is a shadow falling on me, I don't know what
Mm-hmm,
kind of shadow, but there are certain kinds of shadows of maybe a branch or something like that. I will start having palpitations, and there's an increased, heartbeat, and I feel very restless, and I'm not able to explain it.
mm-hmm,
So this is something that I'm carrying from the age of 15 to. Have I not gone through therapy? Have I not gone through resolution of this? Yes, I have, but still it continues. So yeah, there is this two part of me, the
correct. Yeah.
part and in the beginning was I don't want anybody to get the satisfaction that
Mm-hmm,
I'm hurt. I don't want to give them the satisfaction that my trauma is so deep that it's leaving me some kind of a irreversible scar in my being, my soul. I didn't
mm-hmm,
want you to get the satisfaction of that. And the more you spoke bad about me, the more you
mm-hmm,
made me arrogant, made me, look at her, she's not learning from her stuff.
mm-hmm.
These kind of people will get this kind of treatment only. The more it happened, the more I became harder. I said,
Correct.
more you
Yeah.
should never know about what I'm going through inside. I don't want to have the satisfaction, of like, yeah, see, this is what people
Yeah.
go through, kind of thing. Then
Yeah.
over a period of time, it became the reason for my the people I'm serving, my girls, my children, my women. It became important for me that I should not break before them.
Mm-hmm.
I should not, I should not, because see, what I chose in my life, Lakshmi, is to see these kind of things every day, again and again, again and again.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. I
Not
mean, there's
something
never a
which is away
time.
from what I went through is what I'm seeing it. And I'm seeing it in a more, what I would say, more grievous form. Like I went
Right.
through one time experience, but the girls and women I'm serving have gone through that, say, 15 times a day and 20 times a day for weeks or months together. So I'm choosing to see that, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and it becomes more important for me that, while I empathize with the pain, the empathize
Mm-hmm.
with what they are experiencing, I will not break down before them, because I have to be the kind of a symbol for them that, if she can come out, we can too. This is not something that will scar us, but
Right.
there are several scars that never go away. And
And also,
it's,
I think that makes you more empathetic to them because I've seen that in you
yeah.
when you work with the women, etc. You can't expect them to get over it in 2 days and come out.
Mm,
You need to give them the time. You actually, when the women first come in, you keep them at a separate space than where rest of the women are because they need a few months to just
yeah.
go through counseling and all that. And many of them may go back to where they came from also. It's not like all of them stay out. Some percentage of them
Yeah.
go back as well. But since you've been through that, I think you understand that and give them the time it takes to come out of it. And one of the things you have done is engage the men in it also, and engage the police into it, and have like these very unusual partners instead of alienating the men. How do you make them be part of the movement? And you've done campaigns like Real Men Don't Buy Sex, that has reached like
Mhm.
over a billion, almost 2 billion people, etc. So tell me a little bit about what do we need to do to train the men at large so that this problem is taken care of. It's not just, keeping the girls safe and keeping them at home. It's really about, like our common acquaintance, somebody we love, Gloria Steinem, said that it's not, and actually thanks to you, I met her. And
Mhm.
it's not about raising our daughters like our sons. It's about raising our sons like our daughters. So tell me a little bit about your work with men and how to engage them into this process.
I think, Lakshmi, one of the things that I've always from the beginning, and I would say from the time I chose this mission, for me, my mind and my entire being was being churned on what is the long term solution. Meaning you can do some amount of scavenging, in terms of keep cleaning up, and, feel very happy about it. But does that bring change? And that does, for me, I would want to see whether in my lifetime I can change things, and
Mhm.
how much can I change things. So it became a strategically very important thing that we address where the root problem is, you know. And the root problem is not women. It is the patriarchal understanding that is carried by men and women, and it is manifested more in men in terms of the actual action. So, working with men is a strategic choice. Now, the question is, how do we work with them? Very, very early on, I understood is that not just because I had some bad experience with men doesn't mean all the men are like that. So, and that.
Including your wonderful husband, Rajesh.
Yes, not only my husband, my father, my younger brother, and
Yeah.
so many people whom I've met, brother Joe Sweaty Carter, my
Brother Joe's who you
yeah,
worked with.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, these are extraordinary men who played a big role in my life in terms of they came in different times of my life and, kind of enriched it with this very, very proactive understanding that, the behavior of few men cannot define the behavior of the entire gender of men, and therefore it is
Mhm.
important to engage with men and boys, and that's what I started doing, and I started doing it in two ways, Lakshmi. One is looking at generically as men, and engaging with a dialogue, dialogue on how these patriarchal biases in terms of commodification of a woman, and the woman's body is something that you exercise your power on, or a woman's body is a kind of a sexual commodity to be used. These are kind of, deep rooted beliefs that men and women carry. Men manifest it in action,
Mhm.
but women also have the same thing. When a woman says, "Is after all, it's your husband," yeah, get you know get used to the marital rape.
Mhm.
It is a patriarchal thinking. So engaging with men to change that kind of thought process is something that we have done very, very systematically. We have prepared manuals, we have prepared, a whole lot of curriculum around it, and we have prepared men to engage with men. But
Mhm.
that apart, another thing that I was very inspired was two models. One, I would say, came from the Nordic countries and very specifically Sweden, where I actually saw how it happen. And the other one was a John school that is being run in San Francisco,
Mm.
and very interesting school where only male buyers, and I think in the US they're called as Johns, who were arrested, and then they are counseled. They are counseled, by a professional counselor, by their families, somebody, near and dear to them. And there's a behavior change because that is so the same model I have replicated in India, where we have tied up with the police to only target the male buyers, Now,
Mm-hmm.
these two kind of intervention is largely looking at male mindset, because I am of the belief that women's safety is not a women's problem. It's a men's problem. With half
Mm.
the humanity, that is 49.6, as you say, if they
Yeah.
are in peril, how can the
Yeah.
world be safe for anybody? you know
Correct.
and
Correct.
therefore, engaging the other half into this conversation, engaging them and changing their mindsets,
Mm.
and when they change, a lot of others inside this 49.6 also will change, because
Right. Right.
this is the strategy with which we are working, and I must say it is perhaps one of the most successful interventions that I have taken up.
Sunita, despite all the success, everything you have done, the struggles that you've had, and then the help that you had, and all that stuff, you still had issues. I mean, you had someone who came from UK and wrote an article about you that really said that some of the women vouched and said that you were forcing them to stay, they didn't want to stay, etc. It was a really tough period for you where even the big donors were questioning, hey, what is this? When someone of repute, especially of Western repute, we take it very seriously, wrote about you. What about this? Like, how did you combat that? And I think, um, they published, later on that, apology or whatever. But how was that time when someone wrote such a negative article about you, and how did you combat that?
So, Lakshmi, in retrospect, today, after a couple of years since that happened, it's around 7 years since that incident happened,
Yeah,
2018. So
yeah.
now I think that in retrospect that it was one of my greatest success,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think all other success matters as much as this success, because uh,
Mm,
this was one that rattled, meaning I had rattled somebody so badly that they
mm-hmm.
took the effort to write an article of this kind. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'm hitting the right target, because the
Mm-hmm.
target was on two levels. If you had read that article at that time, Lakshmi, is
Mm-hmm.
to discredit our rehabilitation model. you know
Correct. Correct.
that
Yeah.
was one thing. And the second thing about was the timing of that article. It was when I was pitching for a bill to
Mm-hmm.
to combat human trafficking. And I
Mm-hmm.
had managed to take it to the Lok Sabha and pass it in the Lok Sabha. So
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say I would say we, many of us together, were able to push that bill in the Lok Sabha. Of course, it got elapsed in the Rajya Sabha and never went anywhere, and still has not gone there. So somebody, and not somebody, many people were terribly, terribly rattled, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is today more obvious than it was at that time. So at that
Correct.
time, I was in the beginnings kind of very naive, thinking, what can this happen? Who's going to read that paper, which is going in UK? But then when one by one things started, unfurling, like people started, keeping away from me, donors started questioning. So there was a whole lot of things that happened. Um,
Right.
and then also at the same time, there was also a clarity who's standing by me, you know
Correct.
and
Correct.
people who like stood up clear and straight and said, we trust you, we believe you. Today, if Prajwala is still standing, it is because of
Right.
those people who supported me. And we continue to, and perhaps, double the work has happened after that, uh,
Mm-hmm.
extraordinary event, I would say, because that extraordinary event, and I want to say it as an extraordinary event because it changed Prajwala forever. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the
Yeah.
reason I say that is till 2018, perhaps, several things is done word of mouth, you know, oral directions are given, oral, instructions are given, and we think the world will understand this is how it is happening, and this
Mm.
will happen. But after that, we need to, we had to review. We were forced and compelled to review our positioning and said, okay, now everything has to be documented. you know
Correct. Yeah.
if we had a safeguarding policy before that, you know now we
Mm.
need to kind of ground it and make it as a proper protocol which is transparently seen by everybody. So you have a
Mm.
problem in my home, I have to create a mechanism, by which you can tell me your problem confidentially, and you will also know that it is resolved confidentially,
Right.
and all this
Right.
should be traceable. It has to be evidence based. So what
Mm.
used to happen before 2018 was all this would happen, if you have a problem, we are trying to address it, but there was no trace of it. So tomorrow if you say something like, I never said anything about that problem, there's no way that I can say, no, you said it, and you remember I solved it for you. No. Now what has
Right. Yeah.
happened is everything is evidence based, you know
Mm-hmm.
so if a person coming to my shelter, first of all, I can't bring anybody to my shelter, right? And that is
Mm.
what this poor folk who wrote the article did not know or understand. If you transport some export quality item here, who has no idea about the law of the land in this country, they will write you know uh, poorly researched pieces like the one it came, because only a
Mm-hmm.
court can order somebody into my shelter, and
Mm-hmm.
only a court can provide the release from my shelter. So my
Mm-hmm.
role is from admission to exit. So entry to exit is my role. Neither entry is in my hand, my exit is in my hand. But what
Yes.
happens between entry and exit, I need to streamline that. That is
Right.
what
Yeah.
was my major learning from that issue. Of course, it was painful. It was painful
Yes.
to see
Yeah.
people whom I trusted, people who had visited my shelter, people who had interacted with people, taking, moving away from me, taking safe spaces and say, okay, now we don't want you to come to our space. you know
Mm-hmm.
there was so many people who said, we need to kind of inquire what has happened. I know these are people who were associated to the organization for 10, 15 years, meaning
Mm-hmm.
you have seen the organization, you've gone inside, you have visited, you have interacted, you have celebrated, and then you say, it's like, so
Mm-hmm.
definitely it hurt. No, I'm not saying it didn't hurt,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
was also a challenge to also prove to the world that this cause is bigger than a person.
Right. Yeah.
Because and that is very important for the world to understand, because sometimes I become the face of the cause. Everybody wants to talk to Sunita Krishnan. Sunita
Mm.
Krishnan is the face, but the cause is not Sunita Krishnan. The
Yeah.
cause is
Right.
bigger than that, and the cause survived,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
And also in the cause, there is always other point of view that people talk about. Is distributing condoms the right methodology, or is it legalizing this the right methodology? There is all kinds of approaches to this, from, kings and concubines, for from our Puranas to, everywhere this practice has been there forever. So will we ever get rid of it? Is it better to legalize it? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know what your thoughts are, but I want you to expand
Yeah.
on that a little bit.
So, Lakshmi, I'm a hardcore abolitionist. I believe prostitution is the oldest form of sex slavery. I consider it as another narrative of sex slavery that we, in our patriarchal traps, have kind of legitimized it for centuries. We
Mm-hmm.
call them Devadasis, we call them Bhoginis, we call them different names. And essentially kind of created this narrative that there is a need for a certain class of people to supply or provide sexual services so that there is
Mm-hmm.
balance in the society. There are so many people who even say that, if prostitution is removed, there will be rapes on the street and blah, blah, blah. So,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere we are, you know, caught in our, you know, very regressive stereotypes that we have internalized. We are legitimizing slavery of different forms, and we
Mm-hmm.
find multiple excuses. This is a necessary evil and an inevitable reality, and therefore, instead of removal, you look of harm reduction. So make sure things are. I don't believe in that. I believe that no human being deserves that kind of slavery. At the same
Mm,
time, one has to be pragmatic. You know,
mm,
there is a situation here. The numbers are mind-boggling. And is it practical to remove everybody out? So until we don't create the exit spaces for people to, with dignity, come out of that space. At a large scale, saying things is not very possible. And therefore, in my, in my perspective, what I did was, let me create a demonstrative model, which is called as Prajwala today, of that
mhm,
possibility. You know,
mhm,
if the entire
mhm,
world is saying that no, no, not nobody can change, I will show
mhm,
you it can be changed. You know,
mhm.
and I'm also showing by my demonstration that this is not like some kind of magic show. Yeah. You can't just remove somebody from somewhere and bring them somewhere and say, oh, lo and behold, it has happened. There's a whole lot
Yeah.
of processes that is going in between. There's a whole lot of psychological care that is happening, trauma informed processes that's happening, life skills, livelihood skills, education, de-addiction, healthcare, whole world of things are happening. If you
Mhm.
don't strategize it in that way, it's a package. It is
Correct.
not just
Correct.
about just taking some 10 women or girls or children from one place, and taking them away and say, okay, now you go out and do what you want. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So I think Prajwala is a good demonstration that it is possible, but it is also a good demonstration on what makes it possible. You know,
Right.
it is not a
And
rhetoric.
right. And also, I've seen it's not just rescuing and rehabilitating women. You're doing a lot of work now in prevention also,
Absolutely.
going into neighborhoods where the chance of something like this happening is high, educating the women there, giving them employment opportunity, etc. So you're doing a lot of that, which is preventive work
We are
also.
also training, Lakshmi, a whole lot of frontline workers like Anganwadi workers, ASHA workers, village assistants, school teachers, and building their capacities to detect the case early and kind of prevent it at the root itself. And today we have trained more than 200,000 frontline workers.
Wow.
And that
Yeah.
is in collaboration with government of Telangana, government of
Mm,
Andhra Pradesh. Systematically MOUs are being drawn between the governments, and we are doing it, on a very, very systematic now. And the entire team is right now, in both Andhra and Telangana. As I'm speaking, there are training programs going on.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when you think of what is your advice for women, especially Sunita, as leaders, as women, as somebody combating this, as victims as well as parents, of shaping the next generation. So when you look at the women force, whether at work, at home, in whatever way, who want to shape something for themselves, what do you wish women did more of?
I think women should break the silence within them. I think each one of them out there witnessed several things with their own
Mm-hmm,
lives, and with it's easy to talk about somebody far away there. It's easy to talk about Sunita Krishnan, you know, uh, or something that has happened to her or him somewhere else. It happens
mm-hmm,
in every family. It happens in your neighborhood. And I think
mm-hmm,
as women, we have kind of internalized and normalized silence. we
mm-hmm,
we, we choose silence in terms of, okay, I don't want
mm-hmm.
to take. I think that needs to be broken, because our silence is costing us only. Because
Correct,
when we
correct.
are silent, we are creating an enabling environment for the perpetrators to survive, and
Mm-hmm,
survive with impunity. you know
mm-hmm,
and today, if you see, Lakshmi, the entire technology and technological space, and if you
mm-hmm,
see that the way child sexual abusive material, which in very late terms is child pornography, is
Mm-hmm.
available in on the online space. It
Mm-hmm.
is frightening because,
Mm-hmm.
just last week I was attending a cybersecurity conference, and one global expert mentioned that 300 million children have experienced harm online, you know. So
Yeah.
at one end is those who are experiencing the harm, but at
Mm-hmm.
another end, I'm questioning who created this enabling environment for the harm to happen, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I would like to challenge the silence that each
Mm-hmm.
one of us have, especially we think, some like families say, this happens to everybody here, so just keep quiet. Why are you making a mountain out of a molehill, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because talking about is going to be more traumatic than going through it, because now talking
Right.
about it, everybody will come to know, then, redressal, blah, 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 and everything. So you're unnecessarily creating more tamasha around it. So that is something that, is
Mm-hmm.
I would like to challenge each woman to break. But other
Mm-hmm.
thing for women leaders, Lakshmi, I would say, each one of us have our own strengths. We have
Yeah.
an extraordinary pool of reserve within us. We don't need to
Mm.
be searching it outside. You know,
Right.
we
Right.
need to believe that we have it within ourselves. And all that
Mm-hmm.
we need to do is invoke it completely. And for me, I've been lucky to face a lot of adverse situation, which has
Mm-hmm.
helped me invoke those reserve of my power, my Shakti, far more quicker. But I
Mm-hmm.
believe I'm not an exception. You know,
Mm-hmm.
each one can do it. Just that you have to look within yourself, trust
Right.
yourself, believe in yourself, and also know that you're resilient enough to come out of any
Correct. Correct.
space of
Yeah.
harm or difficulty. It's there within you. You don't need to be,
Right.
requiring, anchor, or you don't need to become a parasite of any kind, including
Mm-hmm.
being an emotional parasite. And
Yeah.
you have it within you to,
Yeah.
be as strong as any human being, be it man,
Right.
woman, or a third gender.
Now, you wrote your book, I Am What I Am, and in the midst of all, and it's an amazing book. I read it, and I mean, literally in one go on a flight. Um, tell me a little bit about how you found the time. How did you do it? First of all, to put so much of your life into one book. I mean, it's a lot of ground that you covered. So, how did you do that? What was your process for writing the book?
So, Lakshmi, I am what I am captures only 40% of my life. So it
Yeah.
couldn't, meaning I took a choice that only 40% of my life will come out at this moment. I
Uh,
wrote the entire book in 13 days, Lakshmi,
uh,
start to end.
wow.
And I wrote for 14 hours a day. And yeah, I did not really, before I started writing, I did not really kind of have any framework that I'm going to start writing from. So
Mm-hmm.
it was that 13 days that decided the framework, that brought the structure into being. But
Mm-hmm.
I think three things happened in that process. One
Mm-hmm.
was, you know, my big question is what I wanted to tell the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what about my life is what I want to tell the world, meaning, uh, is this something that I want people to be, gaining either sympathy for me or getting titillated by experiences, or is it something that I want somebody to gain? And I kind of felt that it is a story of hope and possibility that I want to write. So I kind
Mm-hmm.
of mindfully took a choice that everybody who has harmed me, I will not
Mm-hmm.
mention their names. This book is
Mm-hmm.
not to shame and name people. You know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's very, very clear from my thing. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing for me was, uh, when I started, you know, the first day when I started structuring and writing what is the chapters that's going to come out and things like that, it was reliving a lot of emotions. Not
Mm-hmm.
just about being raped, but also being beaten up 17 times, and the
Right.
humiliation, the pain of being rejected. And not only then, even till today, I go through many things. And when you recollect that, the kind of outrage you feel, and the pain and the shame that goes through you, I had to
Mm-hmm.
process that also in these 13 days. It was
Right.
not like, I could keep that aside and I have already processed it. So it was happening simultaneously. So I had one day, I think on the fifth day, when I physically broke down in terms of
Mm.
what they
Mm-hmm.
meant for me, all this thinking, and I started puking, and I started having loose motions. And luckily, the place
Mm-hmm.
that I had chosen to write was a beautiful hotel who were in their simulation period, and checking out before they went public. So they had given me this room. So the bathroom was in such a way that the commode and the wash basin was like one in front of each other. So I was for 3 hours, with the wash basin and the commode, and it was like all the toxicity inside just kind of left my body. And
Mm-hmm.
then after 3 hours, when I came out of that situation, it was funny that I didn't feel dehydrated. I did not feel that I was tired and I want to sleep now. I just started writing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was lot of turbulence and churning, but it was
Yeah.
also a journey of gratitude,
Yeah.
because when I started putting things together, I
Mm-hmm.
started remembering those faces who stood by me from the beginning, whether it was Akbar or, whole lot of people, very simple people who had no
Correct.
stake with me. They wouldn't get anything,
Correct.
and they would not, it doesn't make business sense at all for them to be even associated with me, but they stood by me. They stood by
Correct.
me, they supported me. So as much as it was a journey of pain and reliving of several trauma, it was my extraordinary journey, of gratitude. And
Yeah.
as every step, at night I would take all their names, and I say thank you,
Right.
thank you for being. So I think my editor had a tough time, and she said, there's so many names here, can we cut down on the names? I said, I've not kept the other names who have harmed me, so that is half gone, or more than
Yeah.
three-fourth gone. I've kept only one-fourth of them. This I cannot negotiate. These are names that is going to be there. And you played a big role too, Lakshmi, in my life. And
Yeah.
you choosing me, or I choosing that space, I don't know, whatever it was, but you were the face of my happening in TED. You gave me
Yeah.
the ink space. So these are
Yeah.
some extraordinary spaces where I saw the good of humanity. And
Yeah. Yeah. People reacted
I
so positively
my
to you.
absolutely. And the force of nature, you say, right? Like the universe standing by you. I could
Yeah.
see that universe in conferences, in the tech
Mm-hmm.
conference. So you made that happen for me. So thank you so
Thanks.
much for being there.
Sure. There's some questions, Sunita. Rekha is asking. It's not so easy to talk in a crowd that your idea won't be accepted. It's sort of. So, how did you motivate yourself to be in this fight of sometimes one against many?
It's always one against many, Lakshmi, because, and so
Yeah.
one of the initial qualities I developed is I'm going to be the only certifying authority for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I will not allow the world to certify for me about my character or my integrity or my opinion. So I say what I have to say. You have a problem with it, you deal with it. I'm not going to be dealing with your problem, including if you have a problem with me, you deal it with yourself. I'm not going to change that. So I have to say what I have to say and I walk off. You don't like it, it's your problem. You handle it.
Did we lose you, Sunita? We can't see you. Now you're back. Okay. There's
Yeah.
another question from an anonymous attendee saying that I find it hard to let go of self-blame, even when I logically know better. Did you go through that phase too? How did you come out of it? How, Sunita, did we lose you? Okay, there you are. Sunita,
Sorry, I
could you hear?
lost for a yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm there.
No,
Yeah.
it's an anonymous attendee asking, I find it hard to let go of self-blame, even when I logically know better. Did you go through that phase too? How did you come out of it?
I have not come out of it. I handle it in, or I've been handling it for many years. Some at one point it was huge. The self-blame was this much. Now over the period of time, it has come down, but it's not become zero. So there is a small ounce of self-blame that carries with you for a whole life. So there's nothing like completely, let go. Yes, you
Mhm,
process it every day, one day at a time, and you have to mindfully make an effort to process it, and you have to
mhm,
mindfully tell yourself that you're not at at fault. And although your cerebral mind says all that, but there is the unconscious layers inside you which doesn't agree with all of that, and will
yeah.
still find, why 8:30 in the night, why not that time, why didn't you carry so and so, why didn't you do this, whys will constantly accumulate the self blame in some form or other, because there is something inside you, there is some mischief player inside your brain which is constantly pushing you, say, okay, bring that back, you see where you did the wrong, you know and you have to
Mhm,
play with that mischief maker every day. And I'm still taking 36 years to uh, process it. And believe me, from that time to this time, I have several more incidents, may not be sexual assault, but of different other varieties, where I would
correct.
think, yeah, I
Yeah.
am responsible for it,
Mm.
and yeah, you just have to work with it every day and not allow it to consume you,
That's the
you know.
key, I think, is that it'll never go
Yeah.
away. Whatever you've been through will never go away, but how do you keep moving forward uh, by every day, you know, chipping away a little bit at a time? And another question from Nivedita is silence does come with cost sometimes in terms of after effects, especially when you're the sole breadwinner. How do you guide in terms of situations like this? Like the after effects that come, things may fall apart, whatever. How do you
Yeah.
deal with the after effects of breaking silence?
So every choice has its consequences. Any choice you make, no choice comes easy. You can't say, and I made a choice, and I say, okay, anything that comes up with it, I will not take it. You have to take it. So, similarly, breaking that silence is a choice. And when you make that choice, it comes with a lot of consequences. I would
Hmm.
say, be, be brave, be courageous to handle those consequences. Sometimes it is the fear of what might happen that is far more defeating than the actual consequences. The fear, oh my God, this might happen, that might happen. So that might overthinking, where the fear consumes you so much, and the fear is what is defeating you, is a bigger problem than the consequences. Sometimes you just do it and you realize, after all, it was not such a big deal, you know. And always remember that when you actually make the choice and do it, definitely you will still go through some certain time of certain amount of consequences with it. There are effects to it, but then there will be always some silver lining.
Yeah.
Please
And also,
understand
yeah,
that the
sorry.
entire world is not black, you know.
Yeah. And also, I think, it's very important what you said in terms of know the consequences because what I found in the past is that you do something and so many people, as you said, who you thought were your friends go against you. But the ones who stay with you are the real ones you should care for anyway.
Exactly.
So the people who fell off, they don't matter if somebody in the
Yeah.
family wants to disown you, if somebody wants to do something, they were not
Yeah.
meant to be with you anyway.
Yeah.
So you just have to take
Yeah.
that chance. Yeah.
Also, sometimes it is also about how you take what you describe as consequences. You take every situation in your life from a negative perspective, then it becomes very, very, very heavy. You
Mm-hmm.
take it
Yeah.
as a positive outcome. So, like something like this happened, as now Lakshmi said, you really know who your friends are. So look at the
Mm-hmm.
positive side of what is happening out of the
Yeah.
consequences. And then there's somebody, really unexpected stands by you and says, listen, Nivedita, I trust you. I believe in you. You've gained a new friend.
Right.
So
Yeah.
keep keep your mind. It's so easy to get, caught up in the web of negativity. And,
Mm-hmm.
the darkness kind of takes you in and kind of crushes you. Keeps looking for that little light somewhere. That
Right.
small
Yeah.
diya that is happening somewhere, and your focus is there, everything gets clear. Today,
Yeah.
Lakshmi, you asked me about the article that came and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime just few days back, I told somebody, meaning I want to, with folded arms, thank all those people who
Mm-hmm.
were responsible for getting that article, because if not for them, today, as I'm, into a succession planning in the organization, and as I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at, okay, Prajwala without Sunita Krishnan, it would not have been possible, because thanks to them, several
Mm-hmm.
processes got streamlined, you know. So person is there, person is not there. The
Mm-hmm.
protocols will follow because there are written documents which will guide people forever.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can see the positivity, the bitterness against all these people is also gone, if there was any bitterness in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
it's a lot depends on how you see things, and how,
Right.
in what is the lens you want to use to view a consequence. You know,
Yeah.
you look at
So, there's
everything.
a, yeah, sorry, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
So
Sorry,
if you
please.
look at everything from that perspective, oh, I'm the victim, I'm getting hurt,
I may lose this.
yeah, I
Yeah.
may lose this, then, you know, you tend to, only get caught up in that. But if you look at yourself as a survivor, and if you look at yourself as not only a survivor, as a conqueror,
The
you
winner.
can
Yeah.
move out, and tear it down, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
changes. It's a matter of perspective,
Yeah.
you know.
No, Barkha is asking, how do we raise our daughters to speak up, not to stay silent when someone crosses a line?
I think it's not just your daughters, Barkha. You need to work with your sons too. You know, as much as you talk to your daughters about boundaries and what is a safe touch, what is an unsafe touch, and in today's time, you also talk to her about what this mm, instrument means, like a mobile means, what is online safety. You deal with several things, but you also need to talk to your sons about what is consent, what
Mm-hmm.
what what constitutes consent, and what is the right way of doing, what's the wrong way of doing, what's the right age for doing things, and what's the wrong age for doing the thing. So today, as parents, we need to talk to both our sons and daughters, and I would say talk to our sons more than we talk to our daughters, because at times when we are talking to our daughters, I feel, and as an educator, as a trainer, as a lobbyist and an advocate, what I see around is a whole lot of, fear psychosis created
Mm-hmm.
within the girls. Be
Mm-hmm.
careful, look around, check this side, check that side, carry a pepper spray, learn taekwondo. So it's like, what are we teaching our daughters? Always be worried,
Mm-hmm.
always be anxious, never be, be with liberty and say, okay, I'm now free, I'm happy to sleep. So if we are kind of creating a culture of fear, which is not something which is going to be good for our own children. And I would say, whatever you do with your daughters, don't
Mm-hmm.
build that fear into them and don't make them paranoid, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and invest in making them feel, yes, there are boundaries and there are early ways of detecting something which is going wrong, especially in sexual abuse,
Mm-hmm.
especially in unsafe zones. There are early signs every predator gives. And how do you detect those early signs and say, okay, this this is not okay for me. I need to step away from it. Understand what grooming means, what
Right.
emotional manipulation means. So there are several small, detecting indicators, I would say markers that can point to a young person that if somebody starts doing this, take two steps backward, you know and
Yeah.
that will help you in many ways. I can
Right.
send you some manuals and literature if you want to, because we do
Yeah, why don't you
extensively
send it
this.
and we'll have the Harki people post it
Yeah,
as
yeah,
part
yeah.
of this. Yeah, yeah.
But
So
also, all of y'all, please read my memoir. I am what
read
I
the book.
am.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
going to say you all must go get the book, and it's really a very, very engaging read. It's hard to stop once you start reading it. But last question I want to ask you, Sunita, is that you've remained a full-time volunteer at this organization. In fact, personally, you and I had a lot of arguments about this, and I feel that whoever is running the organization must be economically very successful. And it's not that you come from personal wealth, that this is just a hobby. I mean, this is what you do day and night. And I mean, there are so many other things. You've used media really well. You've made films which won national award. Films whose songs won national awards. Films that have won awards. Campaigns that have reached billions of people. So it's not just like you're volunteering or you're just flying by here. This is what you do day in and day out. Why did you choose to remain a full-time volunteer with the organization? Why do you not take the money, and especially if you replace yourself and if someone comes to run this, um, do you expect them to be a full-time volunteer?
So I'm the only full-time volunteer in this organization, Lakshmi. Nobody else. Uh, uh, I I chose to be a full-time volunteer. Perhaps, or I wouldn't say perhaps, because the way I started, uh, because of my personal experience of being sexually assaulted, and so
Mm,
somewhere I think early time itself, I had taken a decision that this cannot be the space where I will earn anything. This mission cannot be the space where I will earn. So I
mm,
also took a decision, ki, okay, I will do something or other on the side, and that as like a hobby, you know, perhaps to get some money to sustain. And my needs were not many. I chose
mhm,
to live in a slum for many years. I kind of had a very modest life. So all that worked for a very long time, and it still works, I must say.
mm,
Lakshmi, I don't expect anybody else to be a volunteer in my organization. So I
mm,
have started succession planning with the organization. I have appointed a chief operating officer now. So I pay him a bomb, in my opinion.
mhm.
Maybe not as big as others are paying, but yes, I do.
Right.
So I recognize that anybody who's sitting in that position requires that kind of money that I chose not to have. And as you know, as I was answering before, every choice has its consequences. And
Right.
my choice meant that I never made any savings, and I didn't have anything for my own self for a very, very long time. Not that it deprived me of any riches or anything like that. Whatever I needed, the world ensured that it reached me, whether it was a
Right.
diamond nose pin or all that I wear and everything. But yeah, I think 2022 was a time when I kind of, for the first time, uh, had a real reason after around 28 years of doing what I'm doing to kind
Mm,
of, am I doing it right? Is that a right decision? And all that you said and all the arguments that you and I had for many years came back into my mind. It was
yeah.
Lakshmi right in saying what she's saying? And that was when I was diagnosed with cancer, Lakshmi. And then
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and I really did not have money to pay for for hospital. And uh, Raj, my husband, who's a movie maker, also was going through a very low professional phase. And after COVID and everything, our savings had completely vanished. And here I was, I needed a huge major surgery and 45% of my lung. So there was definitely a moment where I had to, not a moment, a couple of hours of deep personal introspection, whether I took
Yeah.
the right decision. But then, uh, couple of hours later, without even asking, Apollo Hospital, which was looking after my surgery, the
Mm.
administrator and everybody came to my room. And this is, I've not even questioned, I've not even requested them any support, saying that, as a tribute to your work, we will take care of your medical expenses. So uh,
Mhm.
I know that the universe will stand by me when I'm in trouble. I know I will not reach a point where I'll have to beg people or anything. Something will work out for me. But I also know that I have to be practical about it. So first time
Yeah.
after my cancer experience in 2022, I did make a medical insurance. So
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I did kind of keep a little time for uh, of course, now it's all disappeared. All that good intentions are gone. To charge for my experience, because see, when you've not charged any time for years, now when you go and say to people, "Okay, I'm going to charge for my speech," you know.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
People don't take it well, it's like, oh my God,
Right.
what has happened to you? You
Yeah.
become very selfish, all that thing. So after 2, 3 times of that kind of a response is not required. So I will
No,
continue.
but I do want to wrap this up by saying that I think women, especially people like you,
Yeah.
are doing so much. I think this is one of my friends told this to me recently, Kritika. And
Mm,
sometimes we all beat up on ourselves, right? I
yeah.
mean, there are sometimes I'm like, why did I move to India and give up, making the money at that stage of my career? I should have done it 20 years later. And you look at your compatriots doing so much better. And when you're running around trying to raise money and stuff, man, I should have just
Mhm.
worked out. I've had the money to do
Mhm.
this myself. You
Yeah.
beat yourself. And she just said something very important, I think, is that look at the wealth you have created around you through
Yeah.
people. Like, no matter what someone wants to do, you can connect them. I mean, look at the wealth you have created, Sunita. I mean, in the sense, it doesn't matter it's 30,000 or 32,000, three people. If you made a difference for one person, you
Mhm.
know, has had a life different than what they had. I think it's all, it's a great return on investment on the life. So I really want to say that you're one of my wealthiest friends in terms
Mhm.
of you always have a home for any of us. You always have an amazing meal for any of us.
Mhm.
And you've taken care of thousands of women and you continue to do so. And I do want to say you do have these crazy things you do of for months you walk without any slippers and then you shaved off your long, beautiful hair and you do these things, and
By the way, Lakshmi, this is the book, and I take the complete royalty for this book. So
you
it is,
should.
so please buy this book so that you can ensure some money comes to me.
Yes, yeah.
This
And
is,
I think everybody, not just buy the book, buy like 10 of them, give it to 9 of your friends, give it to your local libraries. I think the best gift we can give is to buy the book and support the thought. It's not just a person, it's a thought, it's an action that has to keep going. And to do that, unless we support, it's not going to happen. So, with that, Sunita, really thank you so much for your time and always you open yourself so honestly. And and again, I want to end by saying it's not about getting it all right all the time. It's not about even feeling great all the time. It's about just taking one step or the other, keep moving forward, one step after the other, keep moving forward. So, Thank you for taking us on this journey. And everyone, please buy the book. And we'll send a link to the book also. So please buy it. And for you and your friends.
Thank you,
So thank
Lakshmi,
you
for
so
this
much.
beautiful conversation.